The morning sun barely touched the dusty streets of Pine Ridge when Thomas McKenna loaded his truck with supplies. It was October 1934, and the Great Depression had hit everyone hard. Even a successful rancher like Thomas had to count every penny, twice. Thomas was a big man with weathered hands and kind eyes. At 52, he had seen plenty of hardship. His ranch sat 20 miles outside town, where he raised cattle and horses with his wife Martha. They were good people who worked hard and helped their neighbors when they could. That Tuesday started like any other. Thomas needed fence wire, grain, and medicine for a sick calf. The general store was busy with folks doing their weekly shopping. Everyone moved slower these days, checking prices 3 times before buying anything. As Thomas carried a heavy sack of grain to his truck, a stranger approached him. The man looked terrible. His clothes were torn and dirty. He smelled like cheap whiskey and hadn't shaved in weeks. His eyes were red and desperate. "Mister, you got any work?" the man asked, swaying on his feet. His words came out slurred and shaky. Thomas shook his head. "Sorry, friend. Times are tough for everyone." The stranger's face twisted with panic. He looked around frantically like a trapped animal. Then his eyes landed on something behind Thomas. "Wait," the man said, grabbing Thomas's arm. "I got something else. See that girl over there?" Thomas turned and saw a thin girl sitting on a wooden crate near the store entrance. She looked about, 14, maybe 15. Her dark brown hair was tangled and dirty. Her dress was more patches than original fabric. She sat perfectly still, staring straight ahead with empty eyes. "That's my daughter," the man continued. "She's deaf and dumb, can't hear nothing, can't say nothing, but she's strong. She can work hard." Thomas felt his stomach turn. "What are you saying?" "Give me $1 and she's yours," the man said quickly. "I can't feed her no more. She's just another mouth I can't fill, but she can work. She's good at cleaning and farm work." Thomas stared at the man in shock. He had heard of desperate people doing terrible things during these hard times, but selling your own child? That was beyond anything he could imagine. He looked at the girl again. She hadn't moved an inch. She didn't seem to notice the conversation happening about her. There was something strange about her stillness. It wasn't natural. Even deaf people moved around, looked at things, showed some life in their faces. This girl sat like a statue. "You're talking about selling your daughter," Thomas said, his voice low and angry. "I ain't got no choice," the man whined. "I can't take care of her. At least with you, she'll have food and a roof. That's better than what I can give her." Thomas felt sick. But as he looked at the girl, he saw something that made his heart ache. She was so thin he could see her bones through her worn dress. Her shoes had holes in them. She looked like she hadn't eaten a good meal in months. The father wasn't going to change his mind. If Thomas didn't take the girl, who knows what would happen to her? The man might sell her to someone much worse, or just abandon her on the street. Thomas reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled dollar bill. It was money he needed for supplies, but he couldn't walk away from this child. "Here," he said, hating himself for playing along with this terrible transaction. The man snatched the money so fast it was like magic. He stuffed it in his pocket and looked around nervously. "She don't eat much," the man said, backing away, "and she don't cause no trouble. You won't even know she's there." Before Thomas could say another word, the man hurried off down the street. He disappeared around a corner without looking back once. He left his daughter sitting there like she was a piece of furniture he no longer wanted. Thomas walked slowly toward the girl. She didn't look up as he approached. He cleared his throat softly, but she didn't react. He waved his hand in front of her face, and she didn't blink. "Hello?" he said gently. Nothing. No response at all. Thomas felt a wave of sadness wash over him. This poor child had been through so much. Her own father had just sold her for the price of a cheap meal, and now she was his responsibility. He touched her shoulder very gently. She jumped like he had shocked her with electricity. Her whole body went rigid, and she looked up at him with wide, terrified eyes. For just a moment, Thomas saw something flash in those eyes. Fear, yes, but also intelligence. Sharp, aware intelligence. Then the look disappeared. Her face went blank again, and she stared past him at nothing. "Come on," Thomas said softly. "Let's go home." The girl stood up slowly and followed him to the truck. She moved like someone walking in their sleep. When Thomas opened the passenger door, she climbed in and sat perfectly still again. She didn't look around. She didn't seem curious about where they were going. As Thomas drove the 20 miles back to his ranch, he kept glancing at the girl. She never moved. She never looked out the window at the beautiful Montana landscape. She just sat there like a person who had learned to disappear while still being present. The road to the ranch was bumpy and full of holes. The truck bounced and shook, but the girl never grabbed onto anything for support. She just swayed with the movement like a rag. Thomas tried talking to her a few times. He told her about the ranch, about his wife Martha, about the animals she would see. The girl never responded. She acted like she couldn't hear a single word. But something bothered Thomas about her behavior. He couldn't put his finger on what it was. He had met deaf people before. They were still alive inside their silence. They looked around. They reacted to things they could see. They had expressions on their faces. This girl seemed almost empty, like someone had taken all the life out of her. When they reached the ranch, Martha came out to greet them. She was a kind woman with gray hair and a warm smile. But when she saw the girl, her smile faded into concern. "Thomas, who is this child?" Martha asked. Thomas helped the girl out of the truck. She stood where he placed her and waited for instructions like a trained dog. "Her father sold her to me for $1, Thomas said quietly. "He said she's deaf and can't speak." Martha's hand flew to her heart. Sold her? Her own father sold her? He was drunk and desperate. I couldn't leave her with him. Martha walked over to the girl and knelt down to her level. The girl stared straight ahead, not making eye contact. "Hello, sweetheart," Martha said gently. "What's your name?" No response. The girl might as well have been made of stone. Martha looked up at Thomas, with tears in her eyes. The poor thing. What has she been through? They led the girl into the house. She followed them but didn't look around at her new surroundings. Martha showed her to a small bedroom that used to belong to their son before he moved away. The girl stood in the doorway until Martha gently guided her inside. "This is your room," Martha said. "You can rest here." The girl sat on the edge of the bed and resumed her statue-like pose. Martha brought her some bread and milk, but the girl didn't eat until Martha physically put the food in her hands. Even then, she ate mechanically, without any sign of enjoyment or hunger. That evening, Thomas and Martha sat on their porch and talked about their unexpected new responsibility. "There's something not right about this," Thomas said. "I've seen deaf folks before. They're not like this." "What do you mean?" Martha asked. "She's too still, too empty. It's like she's pretending to be invisible." Martha nodded slowly. "I noticed that too. When I was showing her the room, I thought I caught her looking at the family pictures on the wall. But when I turned to see, she was staring at nothing again." "Maybe we're imagining things," Thomas said. "The poor girl has been through enough. Her father just sold her like a piece of property." They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun set over the mountains. Inside the house, the girl sat on her bed in the same position they had left her in. She didn't move until Martha came to check on her hours later. As Thomas lay in bed that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this girl than met the eye. Something about her perfect stillness seemed practiced, like she had spent years learning how to disappear. He thought about the moment when he first touched her shoulder, the way she had jumped, the flash of intelligence in her eyes before she went blank again. It reminded him of a wild animal pretending to be dead to avoid a predator. What was this girl hiding from? And why did she feel the need to hide at all? Tomorrow, Thomas decided he would start paying closer attention. There was a mystery here, and he was determined to solve it. This child had already been through enough. Whatever she was running from, whatever she was afraid of, she was safe now. That $1 had bought more than a desperate father's freedom from responsibility. It had bought a human being who deserved better than the life she had known. Thomas was going to make sure she got it, but first he needed to understand who she really was. The girl had no name that anyone bothered to use. Her father had just called her girl or you when he spoke to her at all. Thomas and Martha decided to call her by the simple name they found sewn inside her worn dress: Anna. Anna settled into life on the McKenna ranch with surprising ease. She woke before dawn without being asked and worked until dark without complaint. She fed the chickens, collected eggs, mucked out horse stalls, and helped Martha with cooking and cleaning. She never spoke, never smiled, and never showed any emotion at all. But she was incredibly efficient. Anna seemed to understand what needed to be done before anyone told her. If a bucket needed filling, she filled it. If clothes needed hanging, she hung them. If a fence needed mending, she handed Thomas the right tools before he asked for them. "It's like having a ghost for a helper," Thomas told Martha one evening. "She does good work, but she's so quiet it's unsettling." Martha had been watching Anna carefully during her first week on the ranch. Something didn't feel right about the girl's behavior, but she couldn't figure out what it was. "Thomas, I want you to watch something tomorrow," Martha said. "Pay attention to how she acts when she thinks nobody is looking." The next morning, Thomas made an effort to observe Anna without being obvious about it. He pretended to be busy with his own work while keeping an eye on her activities. Anna was hanging laundry on the line behind the house. She worked steadily, hanging each piece of clothing with careful precision. Thomas was about to turn away when something caught his attention. Anna had started humming. It was very soft, barely audible over the wind, but it was definitely humming. A simple, sad melody that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her. Thomas froze. Deaf people didn't hum. They couldn't hear music, so they didn't know how to make it. But Anna was humming like it was the most natural thing in the world. She stopped suddenly and looked around nervously, as if she realized she had made a mistake. When she saw that no one was watching, she went back to hanging clothes in complete silence. Thomas's heart started beating faster. Martha was right. Something was definitely not what it seemed. Over the next few days, both Thomas and Martha began paying closer attention to Anna's behavior. What they discovered shocked them. Martha was the first to catch Anna in a clear mistake. She was washing dishes in the kitchen when she accidentally knocked a heavy pot off the counter. It crashed to the floor with a loud bang that echoed through the house. Anna, who was sweeping in the next room, immediately turned toward the sound of the crash. She took 3 steps toward the kitchen before she seemed to realize what she had done. She stopped dead in her tracks, her face going pale. When Martha appeared in the doorway, Anna was back to sweeping, acting like nothing had happened. But Martha had seen everything. "Anna?" Martha called softly. The girl didn't respond. She kept sweeping with mechanical precision, her face completely blank. But Martha noticed that Anna's hands were shaking. Thomas had his own revelation a few days later. He was working in the barn when he knocked over a lantern by accident. The glass chimney shattered on the stone floor with a sharp crash. Anna, who was supposed to be deaf, came running from the other end of the barn. She rushed toward the sound of breaking glass with a look of concern on her face. When she saw Thomas standing there watching her, she stopped so suddenly she almost fell over. For a moment they stared at each other in complete silence. Anna's carefully constructed mask had slipped, and Thomas could see intelligence and awareness blazing in her eyes. She looked like a deer caught in the headlight of a car. Then the mask slammed back into place. Anna's face went blank, and she turned around and walked away as if nothing had happened. But Thomas had seen enough. The girl could hear perfectly well. She was pretending to be deaf. The question was, why? Thomas shared his discovery with Martha that evening. They sat on their porch and talked in low voices, trying to make sense of what they had learned. "She's been fooling everyone," Martha said. "But why would a child pretend to be deaf?" "Maybe she learned it was safer that way," Thomas suggested. "Think about what her father was like. Drunk, desperate, willing to sell his own daughter. Maybe pretending to be deaf protected her somehow." Martha's eyes filled with tears. "You mean she's been hiding from abuse?" "It would make sense. If people think you can't hear, they might say things around you they wouldn't say otherwise. And if they think you can't talk, they don't expect you to answer questions or tell anyone what they've done to you." The more they thought about it, the more horrible the picture became. Anna wasn't just a neglected child. She was a child who had learned to disappear in order to survive. "What do we do now?" Martha asked. "We don't do anything yet," Thomas said. "If we confront her too directly, she might run away, or she might shut down completely. We need to be patient and let her know she's safe here." But being patient was harder than they expected. Over the next week, Thomas and Martha caught Anna in dozens of small mistakes that proved she could hear perfectly well. She would flinch when a door slammed, even when her back was turned. She would start to respond to her name before catching herself. Once Martha saw her dancing slightly to a tune that was playing on the radio in the kitchen. The most telling incident happened during a thunderstorm. Anna was supposed to be in her room, but Martha found her standing by the window, watching the lightning and listening to the thunder. When Martha appeared, Anna quickly moved away from the window and sat on her bed with the same blank expression she always wore. But Martha had seen the look of wonder on Anna's face as she watched the storm. For just a moment, Anna had looked like what she really was, a teenage girl experiencing the beauty and power of nature. Thomas decided to test his theory more directly. One morning, while Anna was working in the barn, he called her name softly, from behind her. Not loud enough for someone to hear if they were truly deaf, but clear enough for someone with normal hearing. Anna started to turn around before she caught herself. She froze halfway through the motion, then slowly turned back to her work. "I know you can hear me, Anna," Thomas said gently. Anna's shoulders tensed, but she didn't respond. "And I know you're scared," Thomas continued. "But you don't have to be scared here. Martha and I won't hurt you. We want to help you." Anna's hand started shaking as she gripped the pitchfork she was using to move hay. "You don't have to pretend with us," Thomas said. "Whatever happened to you before, it's over now. You're safe." For a long moment, nothing happened. Anna stood frozen like a statue, her back to Thomas. The only sound was the wind rustling through the hay in the loft above them. Then so quietly that Thomas almost missed it, Anna spoke. "He said if I ever talked, he'd sell me to worse men than you." The words hit Thomas like a physical blow. Anna's voice was small and hoarse, like she hadn't used it in years, but it was real. She could speak. Thomas's hands clenched into fists as anger washed over him. Not anger at Anna, but at the monster who had done this to her. Her own father had threatened to sell her to people who would hurt her even more if she ever revealed that she could hear and speak. "Anna," Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion, "turn around and look at me." Slowly, Anna turned. Her face was streaked with tears, and her eyes were filled with terror. "No one is ever going to sell you again," Thomas said firmly. "No one is ever going to hurt you again. You have my word on that." Anna studied his face, looking for signs of deception. She had learned not to trust adults, especially men, but something in Thomas's eyes must have convinced her, because her rigid posture relaxed slightly. "How long have you been pretending?" Thomas asked. "Since I was 10, Anna whispered. "Maybe longer. I don't remember exactly when it started." 4 years. This child had been living a lie for 4 years, hiding her true self to stay safe. Thomas felt sick thinking about what she must have endured. "What's your real name?" he asked. "Anna," she said. That part was always true. Over the following days, Anna began to open up more. She still jumped at loud noises and flinched when people moved too quickly, but she started speaking in short sentences, answering direct questions and showing small signs of personality. The transformation was remarkable. Instead of a silent, empty shell, Anna revealed herself to be intelligent, observant, and surprisingly knowledgeable about many things. She could read and write, though she had taught herself in secret. She knew about plants and animals, weather, patterns, and farm management. "Where did you learn all this?" Martha asked one evening as Anna helped her prepare dinner. "I watched everything," Anna said quietly. "When people think you can't hear, they don't pay attention to what you're doing. I could watch and learn without anyone noticing." Martha realized that Anna's deafness had been both a prison and an education. While she had been trapped in silence, She had been absorbing everything around her like a sponge. But Anna was still fragile. She spoke only when directly addressed, and she never volunteered information about her past. She worked constantly, as if she was afraid that stopping would make her unwelcome. "You don't have to work so hard," Thomas told her one afternoon. "This is your home now, not a job." Anna looked confused. "But if I don't work, why would you keep me?" The question broke Thomas's heart. Anna had been taught that her only value was in her labor. Winter came early to Montana that year, and with it came long evenings by the fireplace where Anna slowly began to tell her story. It took weeks for the full truth to emerge, shared in whispered fragments between chores and quiet moments when she felt safe enough to remember. Anna's mother had died when she was 7, leaving her alone with a father who saw her as nothing more than a burden. At first, he had simply ignored her. But as his drinking got worse and money got tighter, his anger found a target. "He wasn't always mean," Anna told Martha one evening as they mended clothes together. "But after Mama died, he started drinking more, and when he drank, he got angry about everything. The weather, the crops, the bills, and me." The abuse had started slowly. A slap here, a harsh word there. But it escalated as Anna got older and her father's drinking became worse. He began bringing other men home, drinking buddies who were just as desperate and angry as he was. "That's when I learned to be invisible," Anna said, her voice barely above a whisper. "When the men came over, I had to disappear. If they noticed me, bad things happened." Thomas felt his jaw clench as he listened. He was working on repairing a harness, but his hands had stopped moving. The leather strips lay forgotten in his lap as Anna's words painted a picture that made him sick with rage. "One night when I was 10, I heard them talking about me," Anna continued. "They thought I was asleep, but I was listening from the top of the stairs. One of the men said I was getting too old to ignore. He said I was starting to look like a woman, and that gave them ideas." Martha's hands flew to her mouth in horror. "Oh, sweetheart." "That's when Papa got the idea," Anna said. "He told them I was deaf and couldn't speak. He said I was simple in the head, not worth bothering with." The men laughed and forgot about me. It had been a desperate lie told to protect her from something worse, but Anna quickly realized that the lie could become her shield if she was careful, enough to maintain it. "I practiced being deaf," she said. "I learned not to react to sounds, not to turn when people called my name. It was hard at first, but it got easier, and it worked. People stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as just another broken thing in a house full of broken things." Over time, Anna had perfected her act. She learned to move like someone who couldn't hear the world around them. She trained herself not to flinch at sudden noises, not to sing along with music, not to respond to conversations happening nearby. But the performance came at a terrible cost. The more invisible she became, the more her father and his friends felt free to discuss their plans in front of her. She heard things no child should ever hear. She learned about the dark things adults did when they thought no one was watching. "Knowledge was my only weapon," Anna explained. "If I knew what they were planning, I could avoid it. If I heard them talking about selling me or trading me, I could run away for a few days until they forgot about it." Anna had become a master of survival, learning to read the warning signs of violence and disappearing before it could reach her. She slept in barns, hid in root cellars, and foraged for food in the woods when necessary. "But I always had to come back," she said sadly. "There was nowhere else to go, and Papa always found me eventually." The final betrayal had come on that October morning when her father sold her to Thomas. Anna had known it was coming. She had heard him talking about it for days, trying to figure out how to get rid of the burden of caring for her. "He told people in town that I was getting too expensive to feed," Anna said. "He said I was useless because I couldn't hear or speak. He made it sound like he was doing everyone a favor by finding me a new home." Thomas shook his head in disgust. He wasn't doing anyone a favor. He was abandoning his own child. "I know that now," Anna said. "But back then I thought maybe he was right. Maybe I was just a burden that nobody wanted." As Anna shared more of her story, Thomas and Martha began to understand the incredible strength it had taken for her to survive. She hadn't just endured years of abuse and neglect. She had developed a complex strategy for staying alive that required constant vigilance and perfect self-control. "You're the bravest person I've ever met," Martha told her one evening. "Most people would have given up, but you found a way to protect yourself and survive." Anna looked surprised. "I don't feel brave. I feel like a coward who hid instead of fighting back." "Hiding was fighting back," Thomas said firmly. "You used your intelligence to outsmart people who were bigger and stronger than you. That's not cowardice, that's strategy." As winter deepened, Anna began to relax her guard more and more. She started speaking in full sentences instead of whispered fragments. She asked questions about the ranch, about Thomas and Martha's past, about the world beyond the valley where they lived. Her curiosity was infectious. Anna wanted to know how everything worked, from the mechanics of the windmill that pumped their water to the migration patterns of the birds that flew south for the winter. She had spent so many years observing in silence that she had developed an incredible eye for detail. "You notice things that most people miss," Martha observed one day, as Anna pointed out that one of the horses was favoring his left front hoof. "I had to notice everything," Anna explained. "My life depended on reading people's moods, watching for signs of danger, knowing when to run and when to hide. You learn to see the small things that tell you what's really happening." Thomas took Anna's observation about the horse seriously and discovered that the animal had indeed picked up a small stone that was causing him to limp. It was the kind of minor problem that could have become serious if left untreated. "How did you see that?" Thomas asked, impressed. "His ears," Anna said simply. "When horses are in pain, they hold their ears differently, and he was shifting his weight in a way that meant something was bothering his foot." Thomas realized that Anna had a natural gift for working with animals. She seemed to understand their body language and moods in a way that took most people years to learn. The horses and cattle on the ranch responded to her with unusual trust and calmness. "Animals know when someone has been hurt," Anna explained when Thomas commented on this. "They can sense it, and they trust people who understand what it's like to be afraid." As Anna's confidence grew, she began to show other talents that had been hidden during her years of silence. She could calculate feed requirements and livestock costs in her head with startling accuracy. She had an intuitive understanding of weather patterns that rivaled that of farmers with decades of experience. Most surprisingly, she had taught herself to read and write at an advanced level. During her silent years, she had spent countless hours in libraries and schools, sitting quietly in corners where no one paid attention to the deaf girl while absorbing everything she could. "Books were my escape," Anna told them. "When the real world got too scary, I could disappear into stories about other places and other people. And I learned that knowledge was power. The more I knew, the better I could take care of myself." Thomas and Martha began to realize that they hadn't just rescued a traumatized child. They had taken in someone with remarkable intelligence and skills who had been forced to hide her abilities in order to survive. But Anna's healing wasn't just about revealing her hidden talents. It was also about learning to trust that she was safe, that she didn't have to constantly watch for danger, that she could speak without fear of punishment. The breakthrough came on a snowy February evening when Anna was helping Martha prepare dinner. She was peeling potatoes when she suddenly began to speak without being asked a direct question. "I used to dream about having a kitchen like this," Anna said quietly. "Warm and bright, with good smells and people talking kindly to each other. I used to pretend that someday I would live in a place where nobody shouted or threw things or hurt each other." Martha stopped what she was doing and looked at Anna with tears in her eyes. This was the first time Anna had voluntarily shared a personal thought or feeling without being prompted. "This is your kitchen now," Martha said gently. "And this is your family. You don't have to dream about it anymore because you're living it." Anna nodded, her own eyes filling with tears. "I know. It's just hard to believe sometimes. I keep waiting for something bad to happen, for someone to decide they don't want me anymore." "That's not going to happen," Thomas said from the doorway where he had been listening. "You're stuck with us now, whether you like it or not." Anna laughed, and the sound was like music after years of silence. It was the first time Thomas and Martha had heard her really laugh, and it filled the house with joy. That night, as they sat by the fire, Anna told them about her dreams for the future. She wanted to learn more about farming and animal care. She wanted to read every book in the county library. She wanted to help other children who were trapped in situations like hers had been. "I want to use my voice now," she said. "Not just to talk, but to speak up for people who can't speak for themselves." Thomas and Martha exchanged glances, both thinking the same thing. Anna had survived the worst that life could throw at a child. And instead of becoming bitter or broken, she had emerged with compassion and determination to help others. The scared, silent girl was still part of who she was. But she was growing into something more, a young woman with purpose, strength, and spring arrived at the McKenna Ranch like a miracle Anna had never dared to hope for. After months of winter's harsh grip, the world exploded into color and life. Wildflowers carpeted the meadows in brilliant yellows and purples. The creek that ran through their property bubbled and sang with snowmelt from the mountains. And for the first time in her life, Anna felt truly alive. The change in her was remarkable. Where once she had moved like a ghost through the house and barn, now she walked with purpose and energy. Her shoulders no longer hunched in protective fear. Her eyes, which had spent years staring at nothing, now took in everything with bright curiosity. "Look at you," Martha said one morning as Anna practically danced around the kitchen while making breakfast. "You're like a different person." Anna paused in her work and smiled. The expression still felt new on her face, but it was getting easier. "Every day. I feel like a different person. Like I'm finally becoming who I was supposed to be all along." The transformation wasn't just emotional. Anna's body began to change too. With regular meals and proper care, she had gained healthy weight. Her hair, now clean and well-brushed, shone with natural highlights. Her pale complexion had gained color from working outdoors in the sunshine. But the most dramatic change was in her relationship with the animals on the ranch. Anna had always been good with livestock, but now she seemed to have an almost magical connection with them. Horses that were skittish with everyone else would calm instantly when she approached. Cattle would follow her like devoted pets. Even the ranch dog seemed to understand that she was special. Thomas watched in amazement one morning as Anna worked with a young horse that had been giving everyone trouble. The animal had been abused by previous owners and was terrified of being touched. Several experienced horse trainers had failed to make any progress with him, but Anna simply stood in the corral with the horse, not trying to approach or catch him. She talked to him in a soft, steady voice, telling him about her own experiences with fear and abuse. "I know you're scared," she said gently. "I know you think everyone wants to hurt you, but that's not true anymore. We're safe now, both of us." After an hour of patient waiting, the horse cautiously approached Anna. He sniffed her outstretched hand, then allowed her to touch his neck. Within a week, the same horse that had been impossible to handle was following Anna around like a loyal dog. "How did you do that?" Thomas asked, genuinely puzzled. "He recognized me," Anna said simply. "Animals always know when they meet someone who understands what it's like to be afraid. He could tell that I had been hurt too, and that I survived it." Word of Anna's gift with animals spread quickly through the community. Neighbors began bringing their problem horses and livestock to the McKenna Ranch, hoping Anna could work her magic with them. She never failed to make progress, no matter how damaged or traumatized the animals were. The local veterinarian, Dr. Peterson, was particularly impressed. "I've been working with animals for 30 years, he told Thomas. "But I've never seen anything like what Anna can do. She has an intuitive understanding of animal psychology that you simply can't teach." Anna's success with animals led to opportunities to help in other ways. Mrs. Henderson, the school teacher in town, asked Anna to work with some of her struggling students. Many of the children came from difficult backgrounds, and traditional teaching methods weren't reaching them. Anna discovered that she had a natural talent for teaching as well. She understood what it felt like to be overlooked, misunderstood, or written off as hopeless. She could connect with children who had given up on themselves in a way that no one else could. "You have to listen to what they're not saying," Anna explained to Mrs. Henderson. "Most of these kids aren't really struggling with reading or math. They're struggling with feeling safe enough to learn. Once you help them feel secure, the learning comes naturally. Anna developed innovative teaching methods based on her own experiences. She used storytelling to make lessons more engaging, created safe spaces where children could learn without fear of judgment, and always emphasized that everyone learned differently and at their own pace. The results were remarkable. Children who had been labeled as slow or difficult began to thrive. Under Anna's guidance, parents who had given up hope for their kids started seeing real progress for the first time. One student in particular captured Anna's heart. Bobby was an 8-year-old boy whose father drank heavily and whose mother had left when he was 5. He reminded Anna of herself at that age, scared, angry, and convinced that the world was a dangerous place where no one could be trusted. Bobby refused to speak in class and lashed out violently when anyone tried to help him. But Anna saw through his aggressive behavior to the terrified child underneath. "I used to be angry too," she told Bobby one afternoon when he had thrown his books across the room in frustration. "I was mad at everyone and everything because I thought the whole world was against me." Bobby stared at her suspiciously. "What happened to make you not angry anymore?" "I learned that there are good people in the world too," Anna said. "People who care about kids like us. People who want to help instead of hurt." It took me a long time to believe that, but it's true. Over time, Bobby began to trust Anna the way the damaged animals did. He started participating in lessons, stopped fighting with other children, and even began to smile occasionally. His transformation mirrored Anna's own journey from fear to hope. Anna's work with children and animals brought her to the attention of people throughout the county. She received invitations to speak at church gatherings and community meetings about her experiences and her methods for helping others heal from trauma. At first, the idea of speaking publicly terrified Anna. She had spent so many years hiding that the thought of standing in front of a crowd felt impossible. "What if they judge me?" she asked Martha nervously. "What if they think I'm damaged goods?" "Then they're fools," Martha said firmly. "Anyone with sense can see that you've turned your pain into strength. You're helping people because of what you went through, not in spite of it." Anna's first public speech was at the Sunday service in town. She had prepared carefully, but when she stood up in front of the congregation, her mind went blank. For a moment, she felt like the scared, silent girl she used to be. Then she saw Bobby sitting in the front row with his aunt, giving her an encouraging smile. She saw the faces of other children she had helped, other animals she had healed. She realized that her story wasn't just about her own survival anymore. It was about hope for everyone who felt lost or broken. "My name is Anna," she began, her voice growing stronger with each word. "And I want to tell you about what I learned during the years when I couldn't speak." She talked about the power of listening, the importance of patience, and the miracle of second chances. She shared how Thomas and Martha had shown her that not all adults were dangerous, that some people really did care about children without expecting anything in return. When she finished speaking, there wasn't a dry eye in the church. People approached her afterward to share their own stories of pain and healing. Several parents asked for her help with their struggling children. Anna realized that her voice, the voice she had hidden for so many years to stay safe, had become a powerful tool for helping others find their own strength. As spring turned to summer, Anna's reputation continued to grow. She was invited to visit other ranches to help with difficult animals. Schools in neighboring towns asked her to work with their most challenging students. She even received a letter from the state university, inviting her to consider studying animal psychology and education. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. Dr. Peterson brought Anna a newspaper clipping from the state capitol. It was an article about innovative approaches to helping traumatized children, and it featured Anna's work prominently. "Listen to this," Dr. Peterson said, reading from the article. "Miss Anna McKenna has developed revolutionary methods for helping both animals and children heal from abuse and neglect. Her approach, based on personal experience and intuitive understanding, has achieved results that traditional methods could not match." Anna blushed as he continued reading. "Miss McKenna proves that sometimes the best healers are those who have been through the healing process themselves. Her story offers hope to anyone who has ever felt invisible or voiceless. Thomas and Martha beamed with pride as they listened. The scared, silent girl they had taken in for $1 had become a young woman whose work was being recognized across the state. But for Anna, the greatest reward wasn't recognition or praise. It was the knowledge that she was using her experiences to make the world a little bit safer for other vulnerable people. "I spent so many years feeling powerless," she told Thomas one evening, as they watched the sunset from the porch. "Now I realize that everything I went through taught me something valuable. I can help people because I understand what they're going through." Thomas nodded, thinking about that desperate morning when a drunk man had tried to sell his daughter for $1. Neither he nor Anna could have imagined then how that terrible transaction would lead to something so beautiful. "You've turned your pain into purpose," he said. "That's the strongest thing a person can do." 3 years had passed since that cold October morning when Thomas McKenna paid $1 for a girl whose own father had given up on her. Now, in the autumn of 1937, Anna had become something no one could have predicted, a beacon of hope for broken souls throughout Montana and beyond. The McKenna Ranch had transformed along with Anna. What had once been a simple cattle operation was now a destination for people seeking help with traumatized animals and children. The barn had been expanded to accommodate horses brought from hundreds of miles away. A small schoolhouse had been built where Anna taught children who couldn't learn in traditional settings. But the most important change was in Anna herself. The frightened, silent girl was gone, replaced by a confident young woman of 18, who spoke with authority about healing, hope, and second chances. Her voice, once hidden in terrified silence, now carried across lecture halls and community meetings, inspiring audiences with her story of survival and transformation. On this particular morning, Anna stood in front of the largest crowd she had ever addressed. The State Agricultural Conference had invited her to speak about her innovative methods for rehabilitating traumatized livestock. Ranchers, veterinarians, and animal welfare advocates from across the western states had come to hear what the young woman from Montana had to say. Anna looked out at the sea of faces and felt a familiar flutter of nervousness. But it was different now from the paralyzing fear she had once known. This was the healthy anxiety of someone who cared deeply about her message and wanted to do it justice. 3 years ago I couldn't speak at all, Anna began, her clear voice carrying easily through the large hall. Not because I was unable to, but because I had learned that silence was the only way to stay safe. Today, I want to talk to you about the power of giving voice to those who have been silenced by fear. She went on to describe her methods for working with abused and neglected animals, techniques that were based on her own experiences of trauma and recovery. She talked about the importance of patience, the healing power of gentle consistency, and the miracle that happened when broken beings learned to trust again. "Every animal that comes to our ranch carries invisible wounds," Anna explained. "Just like every person who has been hurt, they expect more pain. Our job isn't to force them to get better. Our job is to create a safe space where healing can happen naturally." The audience was captivated. Many of the ranchers had seen Anna's results firsthand. Horses that had been written off as hopeless had been transformed under her care. Cattle that had been too aggressive to handle had become gentle and manageable. But Anna's impact went far beyond animal rehabilitation. Her work with traumatized children had caught the attention of educators and child welfare advocates across the country. She had developed programs that were being copied in schools from California to New York. After her speech, Anna was surrounded by people wanting to learn more about her methods. A professor from the state university approached her with an offer she had been considering for months. "Miss McKenna," Professor Williams said, "we would be honored to have you join our education program. With your experience and insights, you could help train teachers to work with vulnerable children throughout the region." Anna smiled gratefully but shook her head. "I appreciate the offer, Professor. But my work is here. This is where I can do the most good." It was true. The McKenna Ranch had become more than Anna's home. It was the center of a network of healing that reached throughout the western states. People brought their most difficult cases to Anna, and she rarely failed to help. But Anna's greatest triumph wasn't professional. It was personal. She had learned to trust completely in the love and stability that Thomas and Martha provided. The legal adoption papers that made her officially Anna McKenna sat framed on the mantelpiece, but the real bond had been forged through years of patient care and unconditional acceptance. "You saved my life," Anna told them one evening as they sat on the porch watching another magnificent Montana sunset. "You saved your own life," Thomas replied. "We just gave you a safe place to do it." Martha smiled, remembering the hollow-eyed girl who had sat in their truck that first day, staring at nothing. "You've saved a lot of other lives since then, too." It was true. Anna's influence had rippled outward in ways that continued to amaze everyone who knew her story. The children she had taught were now confident students who helped other struggling classmates. The animals she had healed were living proof that recovery was possible even from the worst abuse. But perhaps Anna's most meaningful impact came from an unexpected source. Earlier that summer, a familiar figure had appeared at the ranch gate. Anna's biological father had aged terribly in the 3 years since he had sold her. His drinking had gotten worse, his health had failed, and he had lost everything. He came to the ranch broke, desperate, and asking for help from the daughter he had abandoned. Anna's first instinct was to turn him away. The old anger and fear were still there, buried but not forgotten. But as she looked at the broken man standing at her gate, she realized something important. "He can't hurt me anymore," she told Thomas and Martha. "I'm not that scared little girl he sold. I'm strong now and I have people who love me. He's just a sick old man who needs help." Anna offered her father a meal and a place to sleep for the night. She listened as he tried to apologize for what he had done, though his words were clumsy and inadequate. She saw that he was eaten up by guilt and regret, but she also saw that he was too damaged by alcohol and bitterness to truly change. The next morning, she gave him some money and directions to a treatment program for alcoholics in the next county. She wished him well and told him he was welcome to write to her if he got sober and stayed that way. "I forgive you," she said simply. "Not because you deserve it, but because carrying anger around was poisoning me. I choose to let it go." Her father left with tears in his eyes, clutching the money and the address Anna had given him. Anna never saw him again, but she heard through mutual acquaintances that he had tried to get sober several times before his death 2 years later. The knowledge that she had forgiven him, that she had given him a chance for redemption, brought Anna peace. "You're a better person than I am," Thomas told her after her father left. "I wanted to throw him off the property." "I wanted to do that too," Anna admitted. "But I realized that being bitter was just another kind of prison. I've spent enough of my life trapped by fear and anger. I want to be free." That freedom had allowed Anna to build something beautiful from the ashes of her traumatic childhood. The ranch was thriving financially, thanks in part to the income from Anna's consulting work and speaking engagements. More importantly, it had become a symbol of hope for anyone who had ever felt lost or broken. Anna had also found love. Daniel Morrison was a young veterinarian who had come to the ranch to learn Anna's methods for working with traumatized animals. He had stayed to court the remarkable young woman who had revolutionized animal care in the region. Their wedding was planned for the following spring, and it would be a celebration not just of their love but of Anna's complete transformation from victim to victor. Daniel understood Anna's past and admired her strength. He had seen her work with damaged animals and broken children, and he knew he was marrying someone truly exceptional. "She's the strongest person I've ever met," Daniel told Thomas one evening. "What she's accomplished, what she's overcome, it's incredible." Thomas nodded, thinking back to that desperate morning 3 years ago. "The strongest part is that she's used her pain to help others instead of letting it make her bitter." As 1937 drew to a close, Anna reflected on how completely her life had changed. She had gone from being a commodity worth $1 to being someone whose methods and insights were sought by experts across the country. More importantly, she had gone from being a silent victim to being a powerful voice for change. The ranch received letters from around the world now. Parents wrote to thank Anna for the methods that had helped their struggling children. Animal welfare organizations requested her advice on rehabilitation programs. Universities wanted to study her techniques and share them with the next generation of teachers and veterinarians. But Anna's favorite letters came from the children she had worked with personally. Bobby, the angry 8-year-old who had reminded her so much of herself, was now thriving in school and helping other new students feel welcome. Lucy, a girl who had been labeled as slow by her previous teachers, had become one of the top students in her class after working with Anna. Each success story reminded Anna of why her voice mattered, why speaking up was worth the risk of being heard. On a snowy December evening, as Anna sat by the fire reading letters from former students, Martha brought her a cup of hot chocolate and sat down beside her. "Do you ever miss the quiet?" Martha asked gently. "The days when you didn't have to carry the weight of so many people's hopes?" Anna considered the question seriously. "Sometimes," she said honestly. "There are days when I wish I could just be a normal rancher's daughter without any responsibilities beyond taking care of the animals and helping with chores." "But," Martha prompted, sensing there was more,